marked by the fossilized tracks of animals with no names, when a tall, barefoot man wearing little more than rags dropped his horse's reins and eased himself off the horse's back and worked his way down an embankment into a riverbed chained with pools of water that glimmered as brightly as blood in the sunrise. The sand was the color of cinnamon and spiked with green grass and felt cool on his feet, even though they were bruised and threaded with lesions that were probably infected. He got to his knees and wiped the bugs off the water and cupped it to his mouth with both hands, then washed his face in it and pushed his long hair out of his eyes. His skin was striped with dirt, his trousers streaked with salt from the dried sweat of his horse. For an instant he thought he saw his reflection in the surface of the pool. No, that was not he told himself. The narrow face and the shoulder-length hair and the eyes that were like cups of darkness belonged on a tray, or perhaps to a crusader knight left to the mercies of Saracens. "Venga," he said to the horse. "You have to be instructed to drink. It's no compliment to me that the only horse I could steal is probably the dumbest in Pancho Villa's army, a horse that didn't even have the courtesy to wear a saddle." The horse made no reply. "Or is stupidity not the question?" the man said. "Do you simply consider me an ogre to be feared and avoided? Either way, my sensibilities are fragile right now, and I'd appreciate it if you'd get your sorry ass down here." When the horse came down the embankment and began to drink, the man, whose name was Hackberry Holland, sat on a rock and placed his feet in a pool, shutting his eyes, breathing through his nose in the silence. It was a strange place indeed, one the Creator had shaped and beveled and backdropped with mountains that resembled shark's teeth, then had put away for purposes he did not disclose. There was no bird song, no willow trees swelling with wind, no tinkle of cowbells, no windmill clanking to life, the spout drumming water into a galvanized tank. This was a feral land, its energies as raw and ravenous as a giant predator that ingested the naive and incautious, a placer closer to hell than to heaven. He longed for a firearm and a canteen sloshing with water and a tall crown hat and a pair of boots and soft socks and a clean shirt. It was not a lot to ask. Death was bad only when it was degrading, when it caught you sick and alone and lying on sheets soiled with your smell, your fears assembling around you like specters in the darkness. "You see those two strings of smoke up on that mountain?" he said to the horse. "I suspect those are cook fires built by your former owners, or by banditos that got no use for gringos from Texas. That means we're going to have to cross those mountains north of us. And other than the grass growing in this sand, there's probably not a cup full of feed between here and the Rio Grande. You think you're up to that?" He rested his palms on his knees. "That's what I thought," he said. "So I guess the big question is, what are we going to do? The answer is, I got no idea." He stared at the water rippling across the tops of his feet. A great weariness seemed to seep through his body, not unlike a pernicious opiate that told him it was time to rest and not quarrel with his fate. But death was not supposed to come like this, he told himself. His fingers were rimmed with dirt, his belt taken from him by his captors, his toes blackened with blood where they had been systematically stomped. He looked up at the sky. "They're already circling," he said. "They'll take me first, then they'll get to you, poor horse, whether you're breathing or not. I'm sorry it's worked out this way. You didn't do nothing wrong." The horse lifted his head, ears forward, skin wrinkling from a blowfly that had lit on its rump. What is it? Hackberry said. Then he turned his face to a breeze blowing down a slope not more than 100 yards away. No, it wasn't simply a breeze. It smelled of mist and trees, perhaps pines, and thunderheads forming a lid above canyon walls. It smelled of cave air and fresh water and flowers that bloomed only at night. It smelled of paradise in a mountain desert. You reckon we found Valhalla? It's either that or I'm losing my mind because I hear music. You think you can make the climb up there, old pal? This time Hackberry didn't wait for a response. He picked up the horse's reins and led him up the embankment on the far side of the riverbed, convinced that his deliverance was at hand. He worked the horse up the incline through the entrance of the canyon and followed a trail around a bend scattered with fallen stone. A paintless one-story Victorian house with a wide veranda and cupolas on the corners and fruit trees and 2 cisterns in back was perched on a grassy bench with the voice of Enrico Caruso coming from a gramophone inside. The incongruity of the scene did not end there.